Tuesday, December 11th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. I'm meteorologist Matthew East here with you. Chillier air spilling back into the region. In fact, look at Banner Elk now down to 29 degrees during the 5 o'clock hours. I'm cutting this video, and this next shot of chillier air returns to the region. The radar much quieter this morning overall across the region than what we had yesterday. A few showers over toward the Outer Banks. As the cold front's moving through toward the north end of that front, a little shot of some rain and snow through the northeast, and then down in Florida, still some thunderstorms rumbling around in South Florida, and we're going to see an area of low pressure begin to form on the tail end of this front. That'll be a weather player for us tomorrow. Now you notice that cooler air spilling into the mountains, 30s in Boone and Asheville, still a lot of 50s in the Piedmont and some 60s, and certainly when you get over toward the coastal plain, you have a lot of 60s on the board this morning. But look at all this cold air spilling southeastward, that little island of warmth that we have been in now for the past 24 hours, about to get overrun by this much chillier air mass moving in from the west. It was a mild day yesterday despite the clouds and the rain at times, highs in the 60s and 70s. Afternoon temperatures today will only be in the 50s in many spots. So the clouds are still with us. They'll thin out. I think as this front moves through, just behind it, we'll wind up with a pretty good amount of morning sunshine before we see the clouds begin to fill back in this afternoon. And then you'll notice some rain spreading through the eastern Carolinas as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. And it looks like that rain will largely stay east of Interstate 85, but could see a few showers at times glancing through parts of the Charlotte and the Triad regions, but most of the rain will be over in eastern parts of the region. You can see rain totals here on the RPM modeling, pretty underwhelming again for the immediate Charlotte and Greensboro areas, but the totals do ramp up a good bit as you get over into eastern parts of the Carolinas. All right, on to the modeling here. And we're looking at the upper level chart off of the European model. And notice a big trough gradually working its way eastward. Now as we get into the day tomorrow, a little piece of energy on the base of that trough slides southeastward, and that will give us our little coastal low that I mentioned. I'll show you that on the surface charts in a moment. And then as we get further out in time, this is what it looks like on the GFS in the upper levels on the weekend. Tell you what, I'll get into the interesting scenario for next week on some of the modeling in just a second. Let me step you through what happens before then. Here we are today on the GFS. Well, hang on. There we go. Some frames out of order for me. All right, here we go on the GFS today. And then you get into the day tomorrow, that little coastal low spreading some rain inland through eastern parts of the Carolinas. Probably, again, the furthest west it'll make it would be roughly Interstate 85. Then Thursday, Friday, looks like full sunshine, cool temperatures on Thursday and Friday. And then as we get into the upcoming weekend, again, this is the GFS model. So here we are Saturday, and then on Sunday we see some showers moving through Saturday night and Sunday, and it's the same general idea with some showers Saturday night and Sunday on both the GFS and the European. But then some big differences as we get into early next week. This is what the GFS winds up doing. Let's go to 180 hours on the GFS. All right, there we are, 180 hours of the GFS, and you have a surface low beginning to pop over part to the southeast, and with some very cold temperatures aloft, that would likely be some snow through parts of Mississippi and Alabama, and then spreading eastward as you get into, this is now out to 192 hours. This Tuesday evening of next week, that low transferring to the coast of the Carolinas, snow in parts of Georgia, South Carolina, western North Carolina, and then that spreads further north into North Carolina and Virginia as you get into Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. All right, so let's just take that 204-hour chart. And again, that's the GFS. Let's look at the European at the same time. And you have the surface low over the Midwest, kind of a stormy setup across Georgia and the Carolinas by Wednesday morning on the European. So why the differences? Well, let me show you here. And again, the charts have kind of gotten out of order for me, but let me see what I can do here. All right, there's the European, and it all kind of starts this weekend. So here's 156 hours, and this is out early Monday morning on the European. At the same time on the GFS, it looks a lot different. And the reason here on the European, you have this piece of energy digging much further to the southwest, toward the southwestern part of the country, than what happens on the European, than what happens rather on the GFS. And I will say that is kind of an error that sometimes occurs in the European. It's too much energy digging into the southwestern parts of the country. Now we go further out in time, and because of those differences, here's the European out at 180 hours. Contrast that with the GFS at 180 hours, and it's just a much different scenario up at 500 millibars. That energy much more bundled over the southeast on the GFS, whereas energy is slower and lagging behind on the European. And that means that the low pressure ends up heading to the Midwest on the European model compared to the GFS. And so here it is finally out at 204 hours on the GFS at 500 millibars. Compare that to the European. And again, you're just dealing with the energy much more further to the northwest on the European, all because of how it begins to unfold over the weekend. All right, so we look at some of the ensemble data here just to take a peek. And this is the spaghetti charts off of the European model. I know this is kind of a crazy chart to look at, but this is Tuesday evening, and that white circle you see in the middle part of the country, that is the operational 500 millibar chart, and that's the that's what it looks like on the operational run. But notice a lot of the individual ensemble members are faster than the operational run of the European. So I think that the operational run of the European is a little too slow. Let me go back to that chart here. I think it's a little too slow with handling this energy that dives into the southwest. Now, I'm not saying the GFS scenario is correct, but this might be a scenario where something more similar to the GFS could wind up occurring than the European. Now, I'm not saying it's going to snow in the southeast, but I am saying that it's not a completely out of the realm scenario. Let me show you one more chart here. This is the GFS ensemble mean, and this is Tuesday morning. And so what you're looking at here, this is the ensembles sniffing out low pressure in this general area. So that means you have some ensemble members with a low way up here, some of the low along the coast, and a lot in between. So kind of interesting scenario to watch with one of these upper level lows, and we'll kind of see how that wants to behave as we get toward early and mid parts of next week. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for following along with us and watching today's edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Have a great day, and God bless.